It's Monday, the 4th day of May, 2020. Good evening. This is another edition of Beyond the Headlines. On this evening's program, we speak with the Honorable Minister for Health, Mr. Nickolas, and the COVID-19 Response Team Coordinator, Dr. George Mitchell. Gentlemen, it's good to have you with us this evening.
Good evening, good night to everyone, wherever you're listening. Good to be here.
So, we heard on the weekend that Grenada had its 21st confirmed case, the youngest person so far. Tell us about this case and its origin.
George, you lead off on that one.
Okay. Absolutely. The last case of COVID-19, the young man in his 20s, was definitely associated with the outbreak at that place that I guess by now we all know about. He showed up rather unexpectedly, so to speak, because when we did the first test, rounds of tests, the rapid test, he came up negative. So that speaks volumes in terms of what we're looking at going forward. The young man did not, and up to this time, has not exhibited any real symptoms of, classic symptoms, so to speak, of COVID-19. And that too, not as though it is totally unheard of, but again, it is showing up that COVID-19 and that virus is exhibiting in different ways other than what we've been classically looking at on television and all over the world. So we're in uncharted territory, so to speak, and that is the situation with this young man.
You've uncharted territory. The week prior to last, we seem to have been in that mode where we thought, okay, we've got this under control, we can open the country again. Minister Steele, remember your shoulder's been up and you were very jovial in that press conference. So you're looking back at that and you're looking forward now, and your thoughts are what?
Well, we have always recognized that COVID-19 is a new disease. And we don't know what we don't know on it, and we always have to be cautious. We use certain policies that have been set so far by WHO and Pan American Health Organization with respect to how and when to open up or how to close, which we have been doing as well. When we spoke, we were into a period where we were not seeing any new cases, but we had still said that the week coming, we would still be on what we refer to as restricted movement, which was only 3 days a week. And that was waiting for the actual 14 days to come for us to give an all clear or a change in status. Unfortunately for us, a couple of days later on the Sunday, where the 14 days would have been that Friday. So 5 days earlier, we found a new case. Our contact tracing people were immediately on top of it and making sure that we had covered all of the bases there. And the clock restarts. The clock restarts with caution, but even afterwards, with an easement, there still has to be a new norm that we have to get accustomed to, which is the assumption that COVID-19 is among us, and therefore our behavior while in public has to be one that follows that possibility so that we minimize always our personal chance of getting the disease as well as spreading the disease if we happen to be that unfortunate person who has it but shows absolutely no symptoms. So it's going to be a new norm that continues to exist. You're seeing it in other OECS islands as well. I believe by yesterday, St. Lucia, after going through a period of no new cases, found a new case. And in speaking with St. Vincent, I think they also are under the same predicament, and most other countries in the world, as they get closer to the other side of the curve in terms of flattening it, you always have to exercise caution.
Dr. Mitchell, if we can go back to this issue about the case and its origin. We know a lot has been said about this particular person working at a local milling company, which has since been shut down. But have we been able to say definitively where did that case really originate from? Have we been able to say this is the exact trace? We know with patient 0, we could have traced the family members. Definitively, can we say that we've traced it back to source?
No, we cannot. This case has been not a mystery case, but it has not been the easiest to nail down, so to speak. We are aware that during the lockdown, as we call it, this company was allowed to operate on a scale-down basis. And so when all of the analyses are done, we believe, and that is in communication with the epidemiologists and my folks, or our folks at the ministry, that it is pointing to someone who probably came into that company trying to get feed for the animals. So that is the closest we have come to zeroing down on a possible introduction of the virus in that company. But it is, we've looked at many different scenarios, but that is the closest we've been able to come to.
One of the scenarios that we have been hearing out in the public domain relates to the possibility of what has been labeled initially as an imported case. I think the minister was asked and he confirmed that the person did have contact with a cargo vessel. Mr. Minister, are we looking at that as a possibility? Some people are expressing concern that some of the cargo vessels that could be coming in are coming from islands where there are high numbers of COVID-19 cases?
Well, let me be clear. I can't say that we were fortunate enough in this instance that the vessel in question was still in Grenadian waters, and we tested the entire crew, and the entire crew came up negative. So the individual did not get COVID-19 from that vessel.
Protocol for vessels that are allowed into the country. So for instance, we saw in the news this evening where the poultry farmers got a supply out of Trinidad and Tobago. How do we treat with that? Is it a free for all? The crew members are allowed to disembark. What are the protocols involved?
No, there are very strict protocols with respect to vessels coming in, and that was done very early. Actually, before we closed our borders, you would have seen public announcements that said that it was no longer allowed for crew on any vessel, any cargo vessel, to disembark. They had to stay on their vessel and could only get off to deal with issues of the vessel and with the prior permission of the Port Authority.
But what is the level of interaction between offload and people accepting goods?
On the cargo vessels that are coming in now, there is very little, if any, interaction. So for instance, on a containerized ship, there's interaction with the pilots that go on board, and the proper safety measures are followed there, because it works both ways. The crew themselves of that vessel are also concerned about introducing any new person on board, and so too are the ship's pilots. And then when the ship comes into port, the stevedores are also interacting with that ship. But with respect to container vessels, which is the majority, the process is automated from the point of view that our stevedores do their part without interacting with the crew. Similarly, with sand, we had a barge with sand where the trucks would reverse onto the barge, but the loader is operated by the ship, and they load it, so there's no interactions there either. And also with any of the other products that have been coming in thus far, There has not been a one-on-one interaction, although we are cautious and we monitor all of those who are involved in that task. That's with Port Authority, any of our frontline. You would have heard us mention them, and we're in constant contact with them and interacting with them to ensure that they remain as safe as possible as we move forward. With respect to a vessel going, that particular vessel going to get product for the poultry farmers, they would have gone down to Trinidad. Trinidad would have exercised the same level of caution and not allowed them to disembark. They would have received their products port side, loaded it onto their vessel, and they come back here to Grenada. And that is the process. The only process here that involves interaction would be our inter-island between Grenada and Carriacou, those shipments, and that is within the state of Grenada. And if and when we were to look at, which is not on the immediate calendar, to look at CARICOM trading our smaller CARICOM vessels that go down and get a multiplicity of products from Trinidad, say, or St. Vincent or so, and then bring it back.
Minister, let me just add, if I may, one additional security measure that we have implemented. And I was in contact with the organizers of that particular vessel, and as well as with the management of Port Authority. And one of the things that we institute is that every single crew member must be made known before the vessel sails to anywhere, and in this particular case to Trinidad and Tobago. So if there were the captain and 4 crew, we would have made sure that those are the ones that would go, and those are the ones, the same ones that would come back. Because there was this uncertainty that persons can use the opportunity to leave Trinidad and to come back to Grenada and maybe introduce the virus in that way. But that we ensured does not happen by ensuring that the crew that goes, the same crew that return.
Thank you so much. I am certain the public is really happy to have those assurances that both the COVID-19 coordinator has provided together with the health minister. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's go to treatment regimen. We are at case number 21. We started at patient 0. Treatment, well-being of the people who are still active cases. Probably you just want to tell us patient 0 and how is patient 0, that's where we started, and then take us through the well-being of all our patients. People are okay, recovering?
Yes, Minister, you allow me to go on that one, right?
Please go right ahead.
Yes, I'm happy to report that the family of patient 0 are doing extremely well. I have been in touch with them on numerous occasions. They are forever grateful. And as I mentioned before, on numerous occasions as well, they have said that they're praying for us, all that they are ever so happy that in the first place, maybe I'm happy that they were in Grenada when they actually came down with the disease, because we know what's happening in the big metropolis like the UK and New York. But having said that, that family is really, really doing well, and they're up and running. They have recovered. All their PCR repeats are also negative. The other families are also very happy. I was in touch with them up to this morning via WhatsApp, and yesterday I spoke to them verbally. They are forever happy. They have sent long text messages saying how grateful they are and how really appreciative they are of the service that they received. And so are the other persons that have been found to be positive. So far, I can say that of the 21 persons, we all know that one person is not here. 13 of those 20 have been fully recovered medically, meaning that they have done the repeat PCR tests, and those came out negative. And so we have 7 persons, if my math is right, 20, yes, 7 persons who are considered to be active. Active meaning that we have not yet done the 2 PCR tests that would confirm that they are medically recovered, so to speak. But they are all doing exceptionally well, including the gentleman who is hospitalized. I was in touch with the medical director today, and all we're waiting on really is for him to get that kind of clearance as well, to be discharged to his home and his family. So they are all doing exceptionally well, and I may not go on speaking if I don't put in a word here for our medical faculty at the hospital, Dr. Dolan Noel, who was on the time ago, medical director, Dr. Taisha, and the rest of the team, all the doctors, all the nurses who have been directly supporting and managing these patients. Kudos, hats off to them. They have done a wonderful job, and I have told Dr. Dolan already he needs to write up these cases. Grenada is special in that way, and God forbid we come out of this without no deaths at all.
Dr. Mitchell, I want to come back to you in a little bit about the recovered cases and whether they could return to work. But following up on that point, Mr. Minister of Health, in the public domain, people are saying, don't commend them, give them a salary increase. What is the government looking at that?
We are focusing to make sure that they have all of the resources necessary and that level of comfort. And so moving forward, we will most definitely find ways for us as a country to develop and holistically. But right now, it is to make sure that that team is as happy as possible. I don't think they're performing because of money. And I don't think paying them money now is going to have them perform much better. I think that is a disrespectful suggestion to them, that they're in it for the money, and those who are saying it really need to think twice about that. What we need to make sure as a people and as a nation, we express our gratitude however possible, whenever possible, to those who are our frontline workers, not just those doctors and nurses there who are dealing with our COVID patients, all of our health professionals, all of our frontline workers, RGPF, police, the same stevedores and Port Authority that we just referred to as well. There are many individuals that are putting themselves at risk to make sure that the wheels of this nation continue to move on as best as possible. And as such, we as a responsible government have to take a holistic look. It would be very irresponsible to take those comments, which I think are irresponsible, to say, let's just pay the first set of group that we identify, and then we find ourselves in a jam to make sure that all the others who are deserving can get some form of gratitude as best as a developing country like Grenada can afford to.
Is the cabinet prepared to look at salary increases for nurses and some of the other frontline workers, Mr. Minister?
The cabinet is prepared to do anything within our means. The cabinet is prepared to make the decisions that are in the best interest of the country as a whole. The issue of salaries have come up with various other sectors. And when we are past COVID, the issue of salaries, I'm sure, will come up again for all other sectors. And as a responsible government, we've got to make sure that every sector gets its due. Right now, in the midst of the battle of COVID, we all recognize that our health workers are deserving of recognition. Our health workers are deserving of an expression of gratitude. And our health system has been strengthened by the experience of the individuals and the equipment that we have been able to procure, which has come at a hefty price as well. So it's a much larger picture than that. And I think right now, while those who make mention of that have a valid point in terms of any and everybody deserves better remuneration if at all possible. But I think that detracts from the reality of the situation right now. And as long as I am Minister of Health, and as long as this government and my colleagues in cabinet are there, we will make sure that as a cabinet, as a government, we will do as best as possible, as much as possible for all of our Grenadians.
Dr. Mitchell, we want to come back to you as promised. You were speaking about the recovered cases, and the question is, can the recovered cases return to work and be reintegrated with family and their colleagues at the workplace?
Well, if we're talking about the first family, fortunately or unfortunately, none of them actually reside in Grenada or would need to go back to work. So that family, at the earliest opportunity, I think, after speaking to them, they're looking to return from whence they came. So that they are out of that kind of mix. The other members of the other families, and you would know that most of them were persons in their 70s and 80s, and I'm not sure if they're going to be returning to work at all. But the younger folks, they are among the more recent positive cases, and in due course, we expect them to return to their duties. Obviously, we want to ensure that every single measure is taken to assure us and the general public that they're not shedding the viruses anymore. And that is what is important. That's the reason why we are doing, according to all the standards that are being followed internationally, we're repeating the tests on 2 occasions to ensure that those persons are not shedding virus. I also said in a previous program that we are going to take additional measures to ask those persons not to go back to work for a week at least after they have tested negative, just out of sheer abundance of caution. So that is how far we're going to make sure that persons are cleared of the virus before incorporating into the workforce and in the society in general.
And how is contact tracing going?
Contact tracing has been, in my view, one of the stronger points of our response. And this has allowed us to be where we are, so to speak. And I must commend the healthcare professionals, the members of the RGPF, volunteers from SGU, volunteers otherwise, for forming parts of that team that has responded. And it has been a really work of art, so to speak. We describe them as being detectives earlier on in the game, and indeed they are true detectives. They have hunted down, so to speak, all the contacts of positive cases, and were able to test them and to give us that assurance that we are not dealing with a massive amount of positive cases in the society. Having said that, we are continue to fine-tune our response going forward. We have upscaled our game to ensure that just in case we have a situation where we have at different points in the country, we can adequately and swiftly respond to a scenario of that nature. So in recent weeks, in recent days, we have ensured that each district, for example, have a team that we have bolstered with additional personnel that are not strictly health related. We have persons from SGU, we have ex-healthcare workers, we have environmental health workers forming part of those teams. And just in case we need, we can, for example, if we have 3 or 4 cases in St. David's, or 3 or 4 cases in St. Patrick's, or 3 or 4 cases in St. Andrews, we can adequately respond because of the fact that we now have stronger teams that can respond in a swift manner and being able to arrest the situation going forward. So as I said, we are fine-tuning our response to be able to cope just in case we are faced with a situation that we find ourselves, God forbid, with more cases in this country. So we're really thinking through at every possible moment. We're trying to make sure that and prepare, so to speak. And I like this evening, I was speaking to the chief community health nurse, and I remember that minister in one meeting spoke about what do you call it, a strike force, minister, and I love the idea. In other words, a special team, a special response team, and she loved the idea. The concept here is that apart from the district teams that we are already strengthening to be able to respond on a district level, we're going to have a special reserve force, a special team that can go in and assist in any one parish in case that kind of response is needed. I really think if you think about the Army and special forces, that you have a situation to deal with, and that special force can actually go in and quell a situation. This is what we discussed this evening. She liked the idea. Dr. Martin likes the idea. And so we're preparing, we're thinking at every point to be able to respond adequately, just in case it's needed. But, you know, in winding up on this question, the nurses out there have been really phenomenal. They have done a really, really great job. I cannot commend them more. They've been bastions in this response. And they would continue to be bastions. And at this stage, they are already thinking, because of where we are, to go back and do their normal duties while they have been doing that all the time. So in other words, they did not just like drop everything. The nurses have been doing their jobs out there, and they come in really ready for high commendation.
Commendations indeed to the medical professionals. Mr. Minister, when we come back, we will be asking you whether you think Grenada is winning the battle when we do a comparative analysis. So you have some time to think about the answer. Do stay with us. This is Beyond the Headlines. This evening we're speaking with the Minister for Health, the Honorable Nickolas Steele, and the COVID-19 Response Coordinator, Dr. George Mitchell. Stay with us.
Dear customer, please help us limit the potential impact of COVID-19. If you have cold, flu, or COVID-19 symptoms, please postpone your visit to Grenlec and ask someone you trust to do your business for you. We recommend using online banking to make payments, available through Co-op Bank, Republic Bank, and FCIB. You can also use check drop boxes at each of our locations. For bill balances and other information, call 237. For additional support, email customersupport@grenlec.com. If you choose to visit, you may have to wait outside because of the social distancing requirements. Our service may be slow, so please be patient with us. Have your account number handy to expedite service. Wishing you, your family, and employees health and wellness at this time.
Total is one of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula One and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
Headlines this evening. We're speaking with the Honourable Minister for Health, Mr. Nickolas Steele, and the COVID-19 Dr. George Mitchell. Mr. Minister, you've been crunching the numbers, I'm certain. And when you do a comparative analysis, or when we do a comparative analysis of what is happening in islands in the Caribbean and globally, would you say Grenada is winning the campaign against COVID-19?
Well, I don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, so to speak. We're definitely not losing the battle. We definitely have been holding our ground, and there's certain milestones, or there's certain indicators that are used. One is the number of cases, whether it is increasing at an accelerated rate, or whether it has slowed, i.e. whether the curve is being flattened and kept flat. And that, yes, we have been able to accomplish, bar that one cluster that we did identify and have done all our contact tracing on. So that's one part. The other part is, of course, the death toll or the hospitalization. That too, we have been successful with to date in terms of 0 deaths and hospitalization consistently being reduced to the point of only 1 person being hospitalized now. The other milestone is the amount of recovered cases, as to whether people are recovering faster than people are getting infected. And based on our indicators as well, to date, yes, 13 people recovered, 7 people infected at present. So it is always a good indicator that you have more recovered than currently infected. That too, we have going in our favor. And then finally, the other indicators that are of significance is the number of tests per population and the screening process as well. We are close to the 2,000 mark with respect to the rapid test screening that we have done, 2,000 individuals. If we haven't surpassed that as yet, Dr. George, we are very close to that. And also with respect to PCR test, which is the benchmark. We are also, if we haven't surpassed it as of today, we most definitely will be passing it this week, 300 individuals done with PCR testing. So from those standpoints, all of the various benchmarks that are used, we're in a good place. And it's getting better for the time being, and I knock on wood, and God willing, it continues that way. With the team that we have. And as I say, by the grace of God, we will continue to make those positive strides and deal with whatever we are faced with as best as we can. And for the time being, that has been, if not putting us on the higher end with the rest of our CARICOM individuals per capita, but also per capita worldwide to up there that allows us to say that, yes, we are not just doing our best job, but we're doing a good job.
Mr. Minister, based on what you know in terms of the number of cases out there, how many more people do you think could be out there but not coming forward to get tested? We've heard the reports of people who have tested positive and they're known in their communities, they've faced con, they've faced harassment.
But there's 2 separate issues you mentioned there. One is the possibility of individuals being out there asymptomatic, i.e. showing no symptoms, or individuals out there who are feeling symptoms but have not reported and are lying low and in hiding, so to speak, or in self-quarantine. And no, we don't know the possibility of, or the numbers that could exist there. That is why we have to continue to exercise the caution. That is why we continue to preach literally to the population, the physical distancing, the wearing of masks, to make sure that we do not gather in large numbers, to make sure that we only go out where absolutely necessary, to make sure that as we have focused as much as possible on food and finance, and slowly easing the restrictions on movement and business as we move forward. It is with the assumption that there may be cases out there, that COVID may be among us, and therefore we must be cautious as we proceed. With respect to how people are treated, if God forbid they are infected, and those who have been unfortunate enough to be infected. We have to recognize that this could happen to any of us. Any of us could have been in the wrong place at the wrong time and have caught the disease. That does not make us someone evil. That does not make us someone to be treated like an outcast. We have to recognize that, like any other illness that is communicable in the way that COVID-19 is, the flu, for instance, influenza A or influenza B, or H1N1. It doesn't mean that the individual should not be reaccepted into society if and when there is that all clear that the person has recovered. In fact, it is essential that the individual should be accepted into society once they are fully recovered. Now, we are going to take additional precautions to make sure that some of the information that we are hearing that is being discussed and debated by public health officials around the world with respect to whether the virus can have a resurgence within individuals who have been previously cleared. We are monitoring that and in constant communication. We recently had a teleconference with, thankfully, with doctors from the People's Republic of China and university specialists there who are able to share information with us. We're in constant contact with Pan American Health Organization and WHO that shares information with us. And we all continue to look cautiously as we move forward, and make sure that we take the right steps and the right caution, but to recognize that recovered individuals at some point are going to be back into society as normal individuals, just like the rest of us.
We promised our viewers and listeners that we would open the phone lines very early tonight because there have been people out there with burning issues and questions that they'd like to have addressed. We have our first caller on the line who's been very patient. Caller, we are so grateful that you held on to the line. Good evening. Hello.
Good night.
Good night.
And good night to Doc and to the minister. And let me first of all congratulate.
Just a reminder before you go that you tried to keep the question very short.
Yeah, let me congratulate the
people as possible in.
All the whole team for the work that they are doing. I think everybody are playing their part. The whole team, doctor, all the frontline personnel are playing their part. My concern is it is said that there are people that are asked to stay inside, and the people actually seeing them and they moving about. I want to know what are you all doing in terms of stepping up and people who are supposed to be inside and are seen. And let me say, Miss Odette, I like you a lot, but I thought you stray a little bit this afternoon. You should not ask that question concerning about salaries at this point in time, because every single person would look for salary increase at this point in time. Thank you.
So much.
Caller,
so much, caller.
Let me defend my host here to say that she's only asking questions that maybe people in the public may be asking. So it's not her personally. But on the issue of what people have been saying, that certain individuals have been asked to stay in quarantine and that they're moving about, a couple of things. One, we take any of those rumors or any of those reports very seriously and follow up immediately. Two, we have never released the names of any individuals who are supposed to be in quarantine. And sometimes a lot of people make assumptions, and the information sometimes is third hand or fourth hand that they saw someone or they saw this individual or so, particularly when we do our investigation and double check. To make sure that this is not the case. We have had in the early days individuals who did not follow quarantine, and we always have that risk. We have an individual who was positive or had an individual who was positive and left the state. So there's always a possibility of people being irresponsible when they're asked to act in a responsible manner, whether it is somebody who is COVID-19 positive, whether it is somebody who has been exposed and asked to quarantine, or whether it is somebody who is not either of those two and just going about their normal life but not taking the regular precautions. As a society, we all have to get accustomed to taking the necessary precautions as COVID-19 exists among us. So we appreciate the calls we get from individuals saying that they have seen someone or they've heard that someone has been in circulation when they're supposed to be in quarantine. We have followed up on all of those. We do have the strength of law behind us that if we should find an individual who is not following the quarantine measures, which we have, and we have certain individuals right now at different facilities because we have been concerned about them following the quarantine instructions, or that we have information, reliable information, that they have not followed the quarantine instructions, and they are at a different facility under 24/7 watchful guarding to make sure that they do not leave. And that will continue if at any point we are aware that individuals are at risk of, to the rest of us of not following quarantine, or that we have credible information that individuals have not been following quarantine. We will not hesitate to move them into the facility that we have, where they will be under 24/7 watchful eye.
Mr. Minister, we have another call on the line, but before we go to the phone line, some people are pointing fingers. They're accusing the government of not reporting the true number of cases on the island. And some people are saying that you, and I don't mean you personally, Mr. Minister, the government has been strategically drip by drip releasing the figures. Last Monday, we got information that by the end of the week, there'd be an additional 9 cases. And I think last week Monday we might have been at 12. My math and my brain is not as sharp as it used to be when I was younger. So forgive me there. But people are accusing the government of not giving out the true number of cases and accusing the government of mining and managing the information strategically. What's your response to that?
Well, let's look at the practicality of that. We would be, and excuse my phrase, we'd be idiots to do that. Why would a government drag out the cases when in order to get an all clear or justification for opening up, you need to have as long a period as possible without cases. So why would we be so foolish to drag this process out? Plus, we are trying to minimize the spread of COVID here. Why would we try and minimize the truth or hide the truth when we're asking people to stay indoors, not to leave unless it's absolutely necessary? And then why would we be trying to give them good news or hide the news that we have X number of cases, but only tell them about one and then tell them about another one another day and make it look like it's not as bad as it might be or so. And we have an obligation. We have an obligation, which we take very seriously, to declare our cases. And you have seen in all of our CARICOM countries as well, no matter how optimistic any of our neighboring governments have been, and some of them have said that they have declared themselves COVID-free, and have still have to come back and say they have found a new case. So I want to coin a phrase that I've heard used on social media for those who are saying that we are spreading out the number of cases and we're hiding. We plan to release next week cases we found now. The phrase that I've heard, and we all need to laugh sometimes, those are what we would refer to as COVIDiots. That they really are not thinking the process through.
Thank you so much.
I must come in here as well, because it worries me that from day one, the response and the government said that they would come to the nation and say to them when we find a case. And it has probably been too true, because we have announced cases on a Saturday that we have found the Friday night. And maybe it is too good to be true that we'll be doing that. And for all the honey in heaven, I really cannot understand why folks would really think that we have to drip the case. When we said to you, we will come with the cases as we get them. As we get them, we announce them to you. And that's what we've been doing from day one. We have not waited 2, 3, 4, 5 days to do that. It's like the results come from the lab in CARFA in Trinidad. We get it the next day, we announce. We get the results from SGU, we announce it the next day. So much so, Odette, that persons have had it to say that there is no synchrony, there is no order in which we're doing it, that we come today, we come tomorrow, that kind of thing. And I think that has been the case because we promised to do that. And maybe it is a better thing to say, okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or every day at 4 o'clock, we will give something. But it has been that kind of promise we were trying to keep by saying to the public when we got a case that in a way it came out as being a bit sort of like unplanned or unorganized. But it was trying to keep up to a promise that we made to the nation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle. And we promised to go to the phone lines. We've had a caller on hold for a little bit. Caller, good evening. It's your turn. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please go right ahead.
Okay, good night.
Good night, caller.
I'm calling in reference to case 21. You said that he had no signs or symptoms of the virus and that he was tested twice and came back negative. What made him positive to be case 21?
No, it wasn't that. George, you go ahead, but he wasn't tested twice, but you go ahead and answer.
Yes, so let me just reiterate what you said, Minister. He was not tested twice. The first test was a rapid test that was done with every member of the company. At that test, only 3 persons, I think, came back positive on rapid tests. We tested them over to confirm, and we found that they were PCR positive. Now, that particular last case that we're talking about showed up negative on rapid tests. And I need to explain that. Now, if you do not have enough antibodies in your system at the time when you're tested, then you would not show up to be positive on rapid tests. And it's similar to if you do the PCR test. If you don't have enough viral matter or viruses in your system, you can also come up negative. So at the time that we tested that individual, his body did not produce enough antibodies to be able to be detected on that particular test. However, his PCR, which is most sensitive, a most sensitive test, did come up positive. So that is the explanation. And this happens, and this is the reason why we are going to continue to strictly monitor the individuals from that particular company because they may have been infected just recently, just before we closed down the company. And by the time we tested them the first time, they may not have had enough viruses in their system. So we have to ensure that they stay at home. We have to ensure that they are tested again before we can release them into the workforce. And as Dr. Noel graciously explained to the nation a few weeks ago, that these antibodies take a while before they show up. On average, about 7 days. So we are working with the science. We are working with a program. We are not doing this by guess. We want to ensure that when we say to the folks that you can go back to work, it is because the time has elapsed where we can say to a certain degree of certainty that you did not contract the virus, you do not have antibodies, and you don't have active viruses in your system. So I hope I have explained to the caller and explained to the nation that particular doubt or that particular question which may have arisen as a result of this last case.
Thank you for the full explanation. And we have another caller on the line. Caller, good evening. Go ahead with your question, please.
Good afternoon to the panel.
Go ahead.
My question is just in conjunction with the answer that Minister gave towards the person that says there is people outside and they're walking out of the what should call it, quarantine and being in the street. But and he says there was no names given. But let us not forget, every Grenadian, every person who has this virus has a neighbor. And everybody in Grenada knows their neighbor. So let us not be too careful to be that way so too careful that the people doesn't know what they're saying. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, the caller is right. I'm not saying that. No, I did start by saying we take every report seriously, even if it is the same report that we get over and over that we have already confirmed not to be true or to be true. We take every single report seriously, and we follow up on every single report.
And allow me to use the opportunity, Odette, to thank every member of the public who have come forward to report any such possible cases that they think is happening out there. Just today, for example, I had 2 such calls that we immediately investigated. Most of these folks, though, would have some pseudonym. It's funny how Grenadians have so many nicknames, so to speak. And so we have had to find out who exactly are you talking about so that we can go to the list and find that name and ensure that what we are receiving via that kind of information is true. And we've swooped down on that with speed, with certainty, and to ensure that persons who are supposed to be in quarantine remain in quarantine. This is not a joke as we speak. I have said to the committee that this aspect of our response is probably the most important as we speak, to ensure that persons remain in quarantine, because by doing so, the possibility or the opportunity to spread the virus basically remains nil. So as part of our response, this is, in my view, one of the most important chapters that we are going through. And so we are putting out all the stops. We have persons calling these people on a daily basis, providing a report. And if we can't find someone, then we elevate them to the security forces so that they can go look for them. This is how serious and how much we are taking this aspect of the response at this particular time.
We, early in the pandemic, pharmacies were concerned that people were erratically buying medication that they believe could help prevent and treat COVID-19. Is that still a problem?
In the beginning, we were seeing certain things that forced us to take necessary precautions for individuals who truly did need certain types of medication, because there were various names being touted about of certain drugs that were being used in the treatment of. And to an extent, I would say that individuals in the public who may have done that type of hoarding or so, it would have been, 1, irresponsible, and 2, not properly thought through, because the medication that is being used by the doctors are dependent on the individual symptoms and difficulties somebody might be experiencing should they be COVID positive. So it did force us to have to take certain precautions to make sure that certain medications remain available for individuals with pre-existing conditions. But I'm not sure, George, if you want to add anything to that as well.
Before Dr. Mitchell,
I don't think people are buying vitamins and zinc and so as they were doing in the beginning. The pharmacy shelves really became quite empty at that time. I don't think the same panic has prevailed as of now. There is nothing wrong, in my view, to take supplemental vitamins, but I continue to say to my patients that our oranges, our gospo, our different type of citruses and so forth are easier digested than those. So no ill feelings to the pharmaceutical industry, but of course our natural products are better absorbed by the body. But other than that, no, the panic is over in my view, and people go to the pharmacies for other things that they would otherwise need on a daily basis.
Yes.
That is what I'm hearing.
Thank you so much. We have a caller. Caller, good evening.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, my question to the minister and the doctor. The gentleman in the particular workplace, when we had our brief, our press, and we said that person got infected, is it true that the person went to the general hospital, said they were having difficulty breathing because of the chemical in the workplace? I'm not too sure. I think they had mentioned that and was turned back. The other thing is why that person was turned back, knowing that we are facing with the COVID-19 now. Why that person wasn't tested? The other question is, are there other persons that are coming to the hospital with these similar signs, and persons are being sent back because they are saying now that, okay, I'm having this difficulty breathing because I was cleaning in dust. Knowing that we have the COVID around, why are these persons not tested?
We've been totally transparent on that. In our announcement, we clearly said that the person did come to the hospital more than once and was not treated or suspected for COVID-19 because they said they were inhaling dust and chemicals. And Dr. Dolan Noel was there to also speak to it. But this is a process of reinforcement and making sure that if at one point something happens, you make sure that if it is something that you don't want to happen again, you put the measures in place that it doesn't happen again. And I know that the team at the General Hospital has most definitely made adjustments there. And the public at large, I think, also, because you are asking that question and you remember it, so therefore it stays with you, and it stays with many other people out there. That what we saw happening immediately afterwards and continue to happen is individuals presenting to the hospital and saying, I believe I have COVID-19, and not, I have symptoms, but I don't think it is because of X, Y, or Z. And while that has led to a lot of what we would call false beliefs from individuals presenting to the hospital, we prefer that. We prefer people to think or to be concerned that they might have COVID-19 and report it to us, than for people to think that although they have symptoms, they find some other explanation or so. And patient 15 here was a primary example of that. I believe the nation as a whole has heard that, listened to that, and not just our medical team, but we as a people, as a nation, have adjusted accordingly to make sure that as best as possible that doesn't happen again. Dr. Mitchell, I don't know if you want to comment anymore.
No, Minister Steele, I think Dr. Noel dealt with it thoroughly 2-3 weeks ago. The diagnosis by the physicians on call were in accordance to what the history of the patient was. They made the diagnosis, and they decided that that person was, suffering from pneumonitis as a result of chemical inhalation, and that happens when you make a differential diagnosis going forward. In hindsight, like every physician would do, every worker, not only a physician, but every worker, every airline pilot, would say, okay, maybe I should have thought about that at the time. But, as a physician, you gather your information and you make a presumptive diagnosis going forward. Sometimes you err at the time, and I think in hindsight, this is basically what happened. But the nation was told, and I explained that about 2.5 weeks ago by the medical team based at the hospital.
And I have a signal that we have a call on the line. Caller, good evening.
Good evening to Dr. Mitchell and Minister Steele. Well, you two are on the front line. And I know sometimes the comments may be negative, some positive, but I think that's all expected. Just hang on in there and keep on keeping Grenada safe and keeping the virus under control. So hats off to you all. Now, it's been said that the people who have the virus and supposed to be quarantined, that the community is not friendly to them. They're very harsh to them. But these people, if they're supposed to be inside and they keep coming out on the street, people in the community, what would they see? Death and a threat. So I don't think that in that case, they would deal with them too kindly. They will be very harsh with them to stay inside. So stigmatizing them sometimes and dealing with them harshly, I think, maybe they bring it on themselves. Now, another thing is, are you willing to do an investigation into COVID-19 when cases really started to appear in Grenada? Because in Trinidad, where over 400 people died of pneumonia before they really knew of the virus in the country. Now, I have a friend who had all the symptoms of the virus. That was before testing began in Grenada. And she got it. There was a man who came in from Texas, I think, and he was in ICU at the General Hospital. And she was visiting him with his girlfriend, who also came in from abroad. And she said she just felt one day in the hospital, her throat began feeling different. And she had all the symptoms of the virus, and she almost died in her house. Now, luckily she lived alone, but her brother visited her, and the brother, too, came down with the symptoms. He almost died in his house. Luckily, too, he lived alone. The woman who was looking after the man, visiting him in the hospital, she too came down with the same thing. And then her son came down with the same thing. So, and that was before. And I don't know, I've heard of cases where people died from pneumonia, even here in Grenada. It's up to you to investigate and find out. But I'm just asking whether there is need to do an investigation into this situation and what really happened before we began testing here in Grenada. Have a good night. Thank you very much.
George, you want to take the first stab at that, and I'll go afterwards?
Yeah, definitely. Caller, thank you so much for the commendations at the beginning of your comments and questions. Yes, it's sometimes joyous road. Persons who have come forward and commended the work that we're doing. We do appreciate it almost on a daily basis. Persons do come forward and say, hats off to you guys doing a good job. And at the same time, other persons do come forward and criticize what we're doing. But we're in this, and the principal objective, as I continue to say, is to do our very best. We're going to make mistakes and to save lives, to save Grenadian lives as we've been trying to do. In relation to the issue of the possibility of COVID-19 being in Grenada, because that is what I think I hear you saying. Let's not forget, and we've been saying that the symptoms of COVID-19 are extremely similar to a lot of viruses that have been here with us last year, year before, and earlier in this year. I remember very well as a partially practicing physician that September, October, November, we had persons coming down with what persons describe as a really bad cold, that they had a bad cold, and persons had cough for literally weeks, fever, joint pains, etc. And to a great extent, we were not sure what was going on. It was like, okay, one of those bad colds that were going around. And in retrospect, and I can let you know that some of the first samples that we sent down to CAFA, when they were tested, we found out that there were other viruses in circulation. So yes, other viruses do present. They are quite similar to that of COVID-19. And so the thought of that kind of virus being around and the theories is indeed something that we did experience here months prior to the actual outbreak of COVID-19. I don't know if Minister, you want to add to that, but this is the explanation.
We'd have to ask the Minister to just take pause for a little bit. We were scheduled to take a commercial break at 9:30. It's almost 9:45. So let's take the commercial break and we will come back. This is Beyond the Headlines on GBN Television.
Valley Pharmacy offers both wholesale and retail pharmaceutical and over-the-counter products. We have the most competitive and affordable prices. We are the agents for Vit Plus multivitamin for healthy everyday lifestyle and Sonatogen powder. Hills and Valley Pharmacy supplies the best quality, name brand clinical products such as Rescue Oil, Bio Oil, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Clarisil. We offer the most convenient opening hours. Our telephone numbers are 435-6904 or 6903. Remember, at Hills and Valley Pharmacy, your health is our business. We care.
Now open, Hills and Valley Medicare Center, your one-stop for medical supplies, massage therapy, physiotherapy, and an in-house physician. At Hills and Valley, your health is our business.
Get Rubigas. Get cooking. Rubigas, clean, safe, and reliable LPG is the perfect solution for your commercial and everyday needs. For cooking at home or barbecuing, choose Rubigas LPG cylinders. Available in a variety of sizes from 20 to 100-pound cylinders. Rubigas LPG, clean, safe, reliable. Are you cooking with Rubigas? Get Rubis, get going.
The NIS is committed to your well-being and continues to provide the same excellent service to you from the safety of your home or office. Therefore, from April 2020, all remittances must be submitted electronically to nisremit@nisgrenada.org. The e-remittance template can be downloaded from our website at www.nisgrenada.org/e-submission. Alternatively, you can provide us with your email address and the required Excel spreadsheet will be sent to you. Call 440-3309 or chat with us on social media for more information. NIS, serving you because we care.
It's new. innovative and classy, and a cut above the rest. Your one-stop shop for bathtubs, kitchenette, customized doors and windows, and even a new paint job. We also sell quartz and solid surface countertops. At M&N Hardware, we offer best prices, excellent service, efficiency, and reliability. Visit us at Dusty Highway, Grandin, St. George, or call telephone number 440-6757. M&N Hardware, from foundation to roof. Let's build together.
At Communal, we are adapting to meet the changing needs of our shareholders and members. Times are changing, and with the changing times comes a whole new way to do business. Our parents may have done their banking a different way. Communal's state-of-the-art online banking and international debit card allows members to do business with great ease. It's like literally having a branch in your very own hands. Need a loan? Apply online from the comfort of your own home anywhere in the world, and your request will be dealt with remotely. Want to transfer between your accounts or another shareholder? No wait time for transactions to update. Voila! Who needs receipts when you can receive them via e-statements on your mobile device and save the environment? Not a Communal member? You can join our family today by applying online. At Communal, we see you working hard to ensure that you save, invest, and grow. Communal, join us today. This will be the best financial decision you have ever made. My name is Hollis Mr. Killer Map, and I endorse this message.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We're looking at COVID-19, getting an update from Grenada's Health Minister, the Honorable Nickolas Steele, and the COVID-19 Response Coordinator, Dr. George Mitchell. One question that has been at the forefront of people's minds is that of the frontline workers, and especially cashiers at supermarkets and at pharmacies and other places. People are saying that they should be tested, it should be mandatory. What is your response to that?
Well, let me first address the last question, because I think it is very important to address that as well. The concerns that have been expressed by individuals that they're saying, that they had COVID-19 type symptoms maybe in early February or in January or in December. And that the virus was here before, or possible that the virus was here before. I think the most recent case is a primary example to use there. Because of the rate of infection, the high rate of infection of COVID-19, we've shown with one individual entering a workplace, we now have 6 individuals who have been infected within the space of a week. So we use that one as a determinant to say that COVID-19 was not here earlier, because we would be in a much worse state if it was among us, if this monster, as I refer to it now, was among us in Grenada before we closed. We use our risk assessment, and we, like most other countries that did close, we try to find what we refer to as the Goldilocks moment. Not too soon, not too late. And based on when we closed our borders, one can say on hindsight, maybe we should have closed a week earlier. But we closed, I think, at the right time. We made the right risk assessment and the correct decision to close when we did, which allowed us to yes, unfortunately, it allowed a couple of cases in, but allowed us to control it and to get on top of it and to be where we are now, where those imported cases, as best as we know, are at end. We have other cases now that we are following up on, and the intention always was, based on the science, to do what is referred to as flattening the curve so that you can deal with the amount of cases. If you go too early and close too early, you destroy your economy and then have other repercussions going on. Our Prime Minister said from day one that it is about lives and not about money, lives first. We made the call. He gave us the full support to close the borders when we did, to then restrict movement when we did. It was a bitter medicine for us to take as a nation. But by all intents and purposes, as I responded earlier, by all of the benchmarks, we are winning this battle for COVID. We most definitely are not losing this battle. With respect to frontline persons who have been admirably coming out to serve the nation, primarily food and finance, medical, our frontline essential workers, our NAWASA, our GRENLEC, our telecommunications, our port authority workers, our solid waste workers. Yes, I think it is appropriate for us to look at all of them. That is why we're upping the game with respect to testing. That is why I can say tonight that we've passed the 2,000 mark with respect to the rapid testing screening. We passed the 300 mark with respect to the PCR. So we are using the science there. If anybody shows symptoms that are similar to COVID, and also, as has been shown in the most recent case, even if somebody doesn't show symptoms, but we believe they are at risk of infection, we will test them. We will test them rapid test, and we will test them PCR test within our means and our ability. One of our primary efforts has been focused on getting, and you've heard worldwide the challenge with test kits, etc. Our primary focus has been making sure that we have enough to do the job of testing as many people as possible. And daily, that keeps getting better and better. We have been able to test all that we needed to test to date, and we're now in a position where we're going beyond that and increasing the number of people that we are testing. So yes, there is the intention to look at any of those individuals who have been exposed to mass numbers of population. But also we've been working with the employers for those individuals to make sure that the necessary safety measures as best as possible are not going to wait to see if we have a positive case from any establishment that is non-compliant. We will ask them to close their doors until they're able to be compliant.
We only have 5 minutes remaining, but we have a caller who's been patient. So we'll have to divvy it up a little bit, take 30 seconds of the call and 30-second responses before we do the wrap-up. Caller, good evening and welcome. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes. Good evening to the host and to Minister Steele and Dr. Mitchell. I have 2 comments. Sorry, am I on air?
Yes, please. Go ahead. We're hearing you.
Right. Yes, so I have 2 comments. First, to say thank you to everybody who is on the health side and who is keeping the economy going. The other comment is that I'm pleased to see so many new businesses popping up. I mean, we have several grocery delivery businesses now, so I think that is good, and I hope that will continue. Question. Internationally, it is being reported that the virus is mutating and that now there are several strains which could lead to reinfection, even if you've had it before. And the projection is that it could be 2 years before the threat of the virus disappears. So what is the government's long-term plan? Should the threat linger for, let's say, another 6 months, 8 months, 12 months? And then the second thing is, could you walk us through what will happen when the cruise ship workers return?
So, George, you take the first part, I'll take the second part.
Okay, no problem. That's classic teamwork right there. Colin, thank you so much again for your comments and your commendations, and thank you for the question. In terms of the reports concerning mutation of the virus, yes, we are following the science. We are following the researchers, and we are hearing about these mutations. We are continuously reading the articles, hearing the briefs from China, from Italy, from the US, where that kind of research is happening. Based on what we know about these kind of RNA viruses, they do have the ability to mutate a lot. We are hearing that this particular coronavirus it has those very special features, and it has mutated as we speak. Having said that, we just have to do the things that have internationally turned out to be correct to do in facing these kind of situations, if you would ask me. And what are these? These are the things that we've been preaching from day one. And these are the only measures really that is going to absolve us, so to speak, or protect us from the virus, whether or not it mutates or it doesn't mutate. Meaning, because the virus is spread from person to person, if we do the right things, then the virus would find it very difficult to spread. And those measures, and we continue to preach every day that it is an use of ensuring that you take the proper hygienic measures. Wash your hands thoroughly. Use disinfectant that kill the virus. Alcohol with more than 70%. Other types of disinfectants that is known to kill the virus. Those are important measures in going forward. These measures are now becoming to be known as the new norm. This is what we're going to have to live with in the upcoming weeks, months, and probably years. The issue of social distancing and physical distancing is important. And I want to reiterate that virus goes from person to person. So if you are not close to that person, then it is fine. It is going to be difficult to pass the virus on to that person. And of course, the other important and crucial measure is the issue of protecting your airways, because the virus enters your system through your nose, your mouth, and less so your eyes. What you need to do really is to protect yourselves. And in going forward, and the minister may speak to that, we are already looking to ease based on our current situation, but those are going to be crucial elements in going forward if and when the restrictions are going to be lifted. Those are going to be extremely important measures that our population need to take if we are to combat this virus in an efficient manner.
So,
Minister, you're going to take the next half?
Mr. Minister,
yes. Just to follow up on you, the one norm now is that things are not going to be normal. My heart goes out to all, not just our cruise ship workers who are citizens of Grenada. There are many other Grenadians who are outside waiting to come back home. Those who live here and were caught outside when we closed our borders, and those who are born and bred Grenadians who would like to return home. My heart goes out to them, and we as a government will make every effort to try and get as close as possible to a normality that would allow that. In the same way that those of us who have been here in Grenada most definitely have been paying a significant price. The lines that we saw previously and for food, the hardships of individuals when we had extended periods of no movement or limited movement. There have been sacrifices by all, and each and every one of us, it's human nature to try and get close to normality or close to home or so. So it's not just the cruise ship workers, there are many others as well. The cruise ships have made an arrangement with the OECS governments to return the employees who are citizens of the various OECS islands. That is part of their contractual obligation to those employees, that in the same way that they facilitated the employees leaving Grenada and coming to work on the cruise ship, at the end, or if they are putting them on furlough or sending them home. They have to bring them back home. The arrangement right now is one of two options depending on the cruise line. One of the cruise lines has requested that one of their cruise ships come through the OECS islands and drop off in each of the islands the citizens of those islands. We will, under a very controlled environment, have those individuals immediately and directly brought by health personnel to a special quarantine facility. Now, we are only able to do it based on manageable numbers, and that is the agreement with the cruise lines. We will do it in phases based on numbers that we can accommodate. We have made arrangements with certain facilities, i.e. small hotels or so, that this is where we will bring these individuals and have them in complete isolation and observation by the medical team, where there will be no other interaction except by medical personnel or medically supervised interaction for the 14-day period, which also will include a series of testings of those individuals before they get here, before they disembark, while they're here, and before they're allowed to leave the quarantine. So that is what will be done. The other option that some of the cruise lines are looking at is to have a chartered flight, bring them in from one central location. The issue with that is the complications logistically to handle that, i.e. if that central location is the USA or Miami or Florida, where most of the cruise ships might be, it involves moving them off the cruise ship into a semi-public environment or controlled environment, then to the airline. So it puts the individuals at greater risk. And then, or bringing them to one island within CARICOM and then having them travel out. Those present challenges as well that are being discussed and negotiated to make sure two things: that it does not put our citizens at further risk in their attempts to get home, and that we are able to control that process so that we do not put the citizens who are here at any further or undue risk in exercising the right of Grenadian citizens to come home. So that is specific to the cruise ship crew that have been we've been negotiating and discussing for them to come home. Okay.
So we want to thank you, gentlemen, so much for having taken the time to go through these matters in such detail. They say time flies while you're having fun. We weren't necessarily having fun tonight, but we were getting to the bottom of a lot of issues, burning issues that the members of the public would have had. I have a whole long list of questions yet that I have not been able to ask, because tonight we wanted to give leeway to members of the public. I will have to suggest probably that we do continue this discussion probably on Wednesday morning on GBN's To The Point program with Blossom Alexis Welch, because I'm certain there are other issues that you would like to get out as well. So what I will do at this time, we have 15 seconds, because already we've gone over the time, 15 seconds for closing comments. And Dr. Mitchell, first toss of the hat is to you, 15 seconds of closing comments.
I don't know if I can say what I have to say in 15 seconds, but I'll try. Just to let the public know that every single decision that has been made and contemplated and discussed and debated within the COVID committee is basically to achieve one objective, to make sure that Grenadians are safe. And we continue to do that on a daily basis. I want to say hats off to the Ministry of Health officials, Dr. Martin, Dr. Sean, and all of those folks who have worked tirelessly day and night, hospital management with Dr. Ty and Dr. Noel and Dr. Carol, the community health nurse, the community division who have been at the forefront out there, RGPF, and everybody else who have basically come forward to aid and to help in this response. Without you, without this team effort, without putting Grenada first, we could not have been where we are. And we look forward to your continual support in this matter. And I look forward to being on the program with Blossom on is it Wednesday morning? where we can probably drill down to other issues regarding the way forward in the new norm, so to speak. So once again, I want to say thank you very much for having us in the program.
Thank you so much, Mr. Minister.
Blossom, let me jump right in and also, as always, thank our frontline health team and our RGPF. But I also always take the opportunity to single out other groups. I want to use tonight's opportunity to single out our utility providers, those who help maintain the water, our NAWASA workers, our Grand Lake workers who are there to make sure electricity, and our telecommunications, which are the Flow and the Digicel. While the rest of us are on lockdown, they make sure that the water flows, that the electricity flows, that the internet flows, that we're able to use our phones. And then in particular, the families of our frontline workers who have not had the comfort of their loved ones at home with them on a regular basis, while the rest of us, or the rest of the nation, has been at home. In particular, the medical team that has been dealing with our COVID patients, they have been, in most cases, away from their families upwards of 14 days at a time and beyond. Because once they start treating the patients that are at the isolation COVID center, they cannot return on a daily basis to their families. When they are finished doing their stint of days, they must spend 14 days in isolation to make sure that they do not spread the disease to their loved ones. So it's been even more difficult for them. So I want to recognize the families of the frontline workers, and in particular, the families of the COVID-19 frontline team tonight. So thanking everybody, thanking those who called in and gave questions, and thanking you, Blossom, and the team at GBN for facilitating this with the ultimate social distancing of Zoom. The last time we were there on your program, Dr. Mitchell and myself were in the studio together while maintaining distancing, but even this now shows that we are all adjusting to the new norm of the possibility of COVID-19 amongst us as we try to get as much as possible back to some form of normality. Thank you all.
Minister, I cannot, don't want to usurp your authority here, but our collaborators, SGU, and yeah, please, I'm not sure that you would not like to speak
George,
to them.
I will take your lead there.
Please do.
Yes, SGU that's doing the testing, that has been providing much of the equipment that has helped to strengthen our resources, our health resources in particular. And a very touching moment that we had where we received 2 additional Cuban doctors over the weekend. These are individuals that have left their families at this time of challenge in every single country, including Cuba. They have left their families, come to a distant land, although in the Caribbean, but come to a distant land to help us in our challenges. And I think that shows the ultimate Hippocratic oath that doctors take to serve wherever, and that shows the spirit of the Cuban people, that they serve wherever there is a health crisis. Even when they're not called upon, they're there volunteering and serving Ebola. They're in Italy and they're here in Grenada. And we want to recognize the doctors that just came and say welcome to them, and the nurses that have been serving us for weeks as well, helping our COVID team move forward.
Thank you both gentlemen for spending the last hour and 15 minutes with us. And to you, our listeners and viewers, we want to thank you sincerely for having joined the program. And the discussion hopefully will continue on Wednesday morning on To The Point from 9 o'clock with GBN's Blossom Alexis Welch. And on behalf of the entire media fraternity, we'd like to, of course, from this end, express the public's thanks to the media fraternity who continue to give the information out and to keep you posted on the various updates as they are provided by the government of Grenada. Like the other frontline workers who have been mentioned, media workers work under great pressure. They can't go to the grocery stores on the shopping days because they're out getting the stories for you. And we would like to salute the media workers as well here at the GBN and all the other media houses across Grenada, Carriacou, and PD Martinique. To those of you who contributed to tonight's program, we want to say Thank you, and we'll be back again next Monday. I'm Odette Campbell. So long for now.